this done, I compare the two pieces. Notice that the part that was shaded light or dark blue, notice that the part that was shaded dark blue is lighter in tone. You see the shading is darker. So again, this is a matter of preference on how you want to paint this. The darker base color will also change the final tone of your color. So notice on the dark piece, or on the black, notice on the black piece, the shading is a little bit more gray. So you're going to see that the blue is a lot more blue. And that's all related to shading.
Wow.
Shocking.
Mine's bluer.
Yes, we have a question up here.
Yeah, I had a question. For that pre-shading, was the final color white? You were doing a difference between the black and the blue?
No, the final color was like a light blue. So what I wanted to show you was the difference between how that undercolor affects even your top color. Like half the lights came on. So another question back there?
Can you use airbrushing outside as well? Like
Yes, you
so
can
it's-
airbrush outside.
So you don't have to smell all the.
Yes. The only problem when you're spraying outside is you have to deal with wind or dust or whatever happens outside. And if it's raining, it's not good for painting.
And if your neighbors are like my neighbors, you're gonna be like, Dan, I noticed you were doing something in your backyard. What was that? By the way, what is that girl doing with the license plate of your car?
Yeah. So, what order do you paint in? We go back to Dan to do this. I get control.
Alrighty. So going back to what order do you build in? Hello. Oh wow. Alright, I like that. Alright, so what order do you paint in, or what order do you build in? The reason I have 3 different pictures of 3 different models is because these are different grades of models, and they're built in different styles, so they require different approaches. So for instance, this is very much like a master grade kit, and if you look, it's camouflage and has heavy weathering. It's also, if you guys are familiar with Scope Dog, has a large detailed cockpit inside of it, as opposed to the Gundams where the cockpit's like this big. So that will actually end up being one of my most complicated ones. This high grade kit had fantastic color separation, and I could pretty much just take the parts apart, paint them all, and put them together at the end, and it came out great. This one was kind of in between. I did some mods on it. That, you know, it's basically I double the weapons of the regular kit. Plus, you see I've got this camouflage pattern I got going on it. So it required kind of a mix of separating some parts, putting some parts together, and I even got kind of lazy with the camouflage, because a lot of the camouflage isn't really require any masking. Like, that's a tan piece, that's a green piece, that's a tan, you know. Only in a few places I actually have to mask off and do like tan and greens on the same piece. So, there's 2 main concepts in terms of how you build. One is called the exploded view method, which is where you literally take all the parts apart, put them each on a separate little skewer. We like to use skewers because, as you say in the video, you're spraying and you don't want to be like holding it with your fingers because you'll get paint all over your fingers and fingerprints all over your models. It's a double lose. So, in the exploding view, you paint everything completely separate. The pros is everything gets painted inside and out, and it's mindless. You don't have to do a lot of thinking, you don't have to do a lot of planning, just grab a part, paint it, grab a part, paint it, grab a part, paint it. Downside, it's tedious. Ask Brandon. Brandon's building the Master Grade Full Armor Thunderbolt, completely stock. How goes that going for you with this 500 something parts?
Hate life.
So, it's also somewhat waste paint. Because I don't know if you saw in that video, see that cone of spray coming out of the airbrush? How much of that actually hits the part and how much goes flying off into the background? So the more parts you paint separately, the more hours you spend painting, more of that paint's going off into your background. Another problem is, if you paint this piece over here and that piece over here, this part's a deep dark blue, this one's a little lighter blue, and you stick them together on the same model right next to each other, and you get a tonal difference, and you can see 2 different colors of blue. So here's a great example of that. So again, one way to avoid that is to put the parts together and paint them all together. So that, since the airbrush goes right over all the pieces at the same time, there's no way that this is a darker blue and this is a lighter blue, because now it got continuously oversprayed by the same airbrush. Okay, the opposite method, which we just kind of showed, is the outside-in method, where you're going to paint the exterior of your model first, and then take those parts apart, and then paint the interior, and then put it all back together again. So, the good parts, the pros for that, if you're doing camouflage or weathering, it allows you to apply that evenly over the entire surfaces, because this arm, just a forearm, just this much of the robot, is probably, we'll see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces at least. So if you paint those all separately, how are you going to get this soft shade camouflage to come evenly across all those 7 pieces if you paint them separately? The only way you can do it is to put them all together. The downside is, it's kind of labor intensive in terms of, you got to put all the parts together, you got to paint it, you got to take them all apart, you got to take the interior parts, put them together, paint them, and then put it all together again. So you like take it together, put it together, take it apart, put it together, take it apart. So I'm going to walk through basically a worst case scenario where I kind of use both methods, because this was a pretty complicated model, this scope dog. It's very similar to a master grade kit. One big difference, it's a much larger scale. So here's the guy, whereas in a master grade, the guy's like this big, right? So this is 1/20th scale, so it's literally the scale 5 times larger than a master grade. But the model is basically the same size as a master grade, so in reality, this is only like a 15 or 20 foot tall robot instead of like a 60 foot tall Gundam. So I had to use both methods. The first thing I had to do, which is what like airplane modelers have to do, is build the entire cockpit, paint the entire cockpit, weather the entire cockpit, be completely done with the cockpit. Then when that whole thing was done, close it all up within the model and then paint the outside and paint the rest of the model. So it's basically like building 2 models in one. Paint the cockpit, that's like one complete kit, and you do the outside. So after the cockpit, I started painting the outside. And the first thing I didn't take a good picture of it, is I painted just these light green parts in the picture. They ended up being this gray color in my camouflage scheme. And I painted those exploded view. Just to make life a little easier, I painted them all separately. Okay, next thing I did.
So we do this panel often enough that, sometimes people fall asleep and we just use that to our advantage. So this is your warning.
Don't fall asleep, you'll be on next year's slides.
It's better to walk out and be mocked for walking out than to stay here and be mocked for eternity after we get a picture of you asleep. Okay. Next, I painted the base camouflage tan. And I did that in exploded view again. Painted all those parts separately, the same tan color. The reason I did them that way is I could paint them inside and out. Because as this model has moving parts, these are like undersides that you might not see, but depending on the pose you might. So I want to make sure I got paint everywhere so that you didn't look at the model from any angle and see like the plastic green. I wanted it all to be painted no matter where you looked at it from what angle. After I painted the tan pieces separately, I put them into sub-assemblies. So like arms, legs, upper torso, lower torso, feet. Once they were in these sub-assemblies, I built those sub-assemblies on top of the frame. And I wrapped them into stuff called parafilm. You guys know what parafilm is?
No.
Okay, you can buy it on Amazon. It's a science supply. It's kind of like saran wrap. It's a science supply.
It's for test tubes.
Yes, it is. I have a degree in biology. I worked in lab for like 7 years, so I use plenty of parafilm freshly. I know it's a science supply because I used it for science. Anyway, so it's kind of like saran wrap, but it's thick and waxy. So you can wrap it around this. You can buy it on Amazon, by the way. It's not like hard to find anywhere. It used to be like, you'd never find it. It's not like at Michael's, but Amazon has it. So you take your internal parts, wrap them in parafilm, just to keep them from getting, a bunch of paint and goop on them. Then you paint the parts on top of them. Okay, then I added the gray parts where they were kind of part of the sub-assembly. So I added like this bullet clip here, these gray parts on the feet. I put the thighs together even though they're all gray. And now I had all my basic exterior parts painted, and now I go to town weathering them. After I went and did a bunch of weathering on the parts, then I take it all apart again. All the exterior parts, put them aside, Then I paint the interior and give it a wash to weather it. That is kind of complicated. I have a whole tutorial. I'm going to put up a link to my website. Literally books are written on weathering. So the major ones I did on this one, it's called a dot filter, where you put dots of like artist oil paint of different colors. And then you get like the mineral spirits, the oil thinner. And just kind of wipe it down to where you take up almost all the paint off. And what it does is give you kind of uneven tonal variations. This was straight up like built like an all tan robot or an all green robot, and it looks kind of bland because it's all green. So you do this filter method, so it's like slightly yellowy green here, slightly bluey green there, slightly reddish green there. It's kind of tannish, dirty green here, and it gives it some liveliness to it. Another thing I did, I did paint chips. So you look here, especially shows really well in the gray. I took some acrylic paint in this dark color. Brandon told me about this color. It's called German Camel Brown.
Yeah, German Camel Brown.
German Camel Brown. It does a very good job of mimicking a dark aged steel. If you look at construction machines in the real world that have been banged up, the places they're banged up aren't shiny silver. They're made of metal, but they're not shiny silver. They're just dark, rusty, deep brown color. And this color does a very good job of matching it. So I put that on toothpicks and just bang the toothpick into the kit. Somewhat artistically, but just that way, like, it's a hard thing hitting the model and leaving marks, which is what weathering represents. At this point, I think that's all I did. Oh, and a panel line wash. So you can see the panel line wash. And these lines on the head up here. See how they're, and also here, around these edges, back. And all these bolts or nuts. Okay, so those are the 3 parts of weathering I did at that stage. Okay. Yes. Okay. No, I'm Dan. That's Mike. Okay. All right. So yeah, these are all painted just basic gray, and I did one layer of weathering, which is called Track Wash. It's a pre-produced weathering product by a company called, there's a few companies called Ammo. Another one, I think this brand is AK. Mainly used by like tank modelers, but you can pick them up at your better hobby stores. They're like off-the-shelf products. You slather it on and it gives you this nice uneven appearance. So it's really nice stuff. This is Gundam, guys, dang it. Okay, after that, I put the whole model back together and did more weathering. And this is what I call like the unified weathering. That's why I had to be all put together. So on these little spots, I learned to like this mud weathering stuff. I'm like, with the brush. And flicked it on the bottom. I held the bottle like this on its back somewhat, and I went and I flicked it from the feet up to look like mud splattering up from the ground at it. So you get a lot of specks of mud flecks down the bottom, and less, but there's still even a couple way up here on the top, because it's just random, basically. I did a lot of artist pigments down here. You put them on with a little bit of water and soap, let them harden up, and you kind of brush most of it off and leave some of it to give it a nice dusty effect. I also did some like rain streaking near the top of it. Yeah, one more. So here's the finished product. So you can see that the mixture of pigments, mud flakes, paint chips, filter wash, streaks, all that stuff gives it this very warm, look like it's been tromping through mud and left out in the rain. And got some dings and dust and rust and all that stuff. Okay, if you have your smartphone, question in the back.
How much time did that take in total?
It took
Dan.
Clem. Who's on first? Time's really hard to judge. I've got kids. I don't get a lot of hours, so here's a good measure. Yeah, there's one of them right there. I love you. My project for SCGMC included a lot of layers of weathering, and my wife basically gave me the pass to just work on it nonstop, with the exception of having to go to work and go to the bathroom and eat and sleep. So I was putting like 3 to 4 hours a night into it. So I finished paint last Sunday and spent all those hours up until finishing it Friday night at like 11 o'clock at night, basically just doing weathering. Panel line washes, paint chips, filters, airbrushing smoke, dry brushing stuff, just layering and layering and layering. So if you look at our website, those Gundam guys are on our Facebook page, you can actually see I put a post like every day of what I did. And you can see every day like the 2 or 3 effects I put on it every day. So there are a lot of good tutorials, and there's a lot of nice off-the-shelf products these days that make it quicker and easier. But it's layers and layers and layers to get a nice look.
How much paint, like out of a single color, did you get? Because I can imagine running out of paint must suck out of one color.
Running out of paint does suck, and that is one reason. Now, generally, if I have a jar of paint, unless I'm building like a mega-sized Zaku, that'll get me through a whole model. Because you get this little jar of paint, but when you mix it for airbrushing, you're mixing it like at least 1-to-1 with thinner, so you're basically doubling the volume. And unless you just go crazy and have very bad aim, you're gonna get a good amount of paint onto those parts and not run out. I mean, I have a 1/3 ounce cup on my airbrush, and I usually fill it up about 2/3 at the most, and usually pour some back into the bottle when I'm done. So you really don't use a lot of paint. Although it does happen every once in a while, and that's why I'm personally not a fan of custom mixing colors, especially when you see all the weathering layers. I mean, it's never gonna look like it came out of the jar anyway, so I'm not super concerned whether it's this exact shade of red versus that exact shade of red, because I'd rather have it out of the bottle, so if I do run out, I can grab the next bottle and know it's gonna be the same color. It's also good if you're gonna touch up your paint, you don't have to remix that exact perfect shade again to touch up something. So I like out of the bottle colors. I may have a drawer full of 5 very similar reds, but at least I don't have to worry about a lot of other issues. And it's like,
And your layers of paint are very, very thin if you're airbrushing. So you're using very little paint.
so anyway, this QR code here is to my website. It takes you directly to my now about 145 page guide to how to build Gunpla. And it's going to take you basically through everything we're talking about here. It's going to take you from snipping off parts, sanding them down, gluing them together, putting on primer, putting on putty, sanding, surface prep, painting, decals, clear coats, some basic weathering techniques. And then on my same website, I have like a tutorial dedicated to weathering. You can get a little bit about like photographing your models and whatever. So it's like one stop, everything you need to build a pretty dang good model in one place in a PDF you can download for free. So this is the QR code. I have some of our cards. You can find our stuff, but that's a very good starting point. Question to that?
Do you use the same glue to put it back together that you use for seam line coverage?
Good question. Yeah, if you guys can hear it. Do you use the same glue to put it all together in the end after you painted everything as you use for the seam lines? And I would say no. The solvent glues we use for the seam lines melt the plastic. They will also dissolve paint. So no, if I have to glue a part on after I've painted and weathered it, I'm generally going to use like cyanoacrylate, like super glues. There's different brand names. The biggest brand is like Zap. But there's a lot of, almost every hobby store has their own knockoff version of it. Only downside of that is it leaves a slightly glossy finish, so after you glue it together, wherever you can see the glue is slightly glossy, so you have to touch it up with a little bit of your flat clear coat if it's a flat model. But yeah, and I mean, if you're sloppy, that will dissolve away some of the paint too, possibly. But if you're not, but just glue, you get a little too thick, put a little bit on, glue on the part and put them together carefully. As long as you don't smear it around, you're not going to mess up your paint job. Whereas the very thin solvent glues, like you tap it and it just runs places, and everywhere it goes is going to like dissolve your paint and just leave a mess. Another question.
Do you guys use any form of putty for seam lines?
Absolutely, I use many forms of putty for seam lines. I use Tamiya.
Yeah, we'll get to some of that.
Oh, okay.
as we go
I'm
along.
sorry, I'm just getting on it. Sorry. Yeah, I use, just quickly answer, I use 4, maybe 5 kinds of cutting, depending on the job.
So we'll discuss some of that as we go along, because we're gonna do a lot of scratch building and whatnot, and we'll discuss the different putties that we use, hopefully, as we progress along with this. So we're going over some basic, still a little bit of more basic stuff. We're gonna go over clear coats, we're gonna go over decal applications.
Decals.
Masking and the clear coats, and a little bit of display bases. So again, gloss coat. Now gloss coat's very, very important, especially if you're using water slide decals. Now I like to pick on this guy's kit. It looks, from a distance, this was at GBWC a couple of years ago, and from a distance it looks really, really good. But as modelers, we're very, very jealous, and we go over and look at something like with the magnifying glass and pick out all the problems with it. So if you look really close to the shield, you see that it's got a little bit of silvering to it. It doesn't look like it's a decal, or it looks like it actually looks like a decal as opposed to looking like it's been painted on. So one of those things that you do is we clear coat it. And here's an example. I took a shield, I took one large decal, and I did a flat coat, I did a clear coat, I did bare plastic. And you can see the difference between it. It's just a really quick slapping of the decal on there. And you can see how it affects on the surface. When you have a really nice glossy surface, it's mirror-like. So that decal will stick on there very, very nicely without any air bubbles under there. Now, if you put a flat coat on there, there's tiny little microscopic dots on the surface that refract light. That's why it looks like it's, flat and not shiny to you. Now, those little dots will keep the decal from sticking on there nicely. So even if you want a nice flat finished kit and you're doing water slide decals, you will gloss coat first and then do the final flat coat afterwards.
That's a beautiful decal, by the way. Where did you get that from?
One of my friends designed this decal. Angel, who stepped out for another reason, he actually started printing decals on a printer that he has. So it's one of those things that we're constantly trying to play with. Dan does a lot of decal designs, so we'll get the decal designs from him, and we'll have Angel print it out. So, oh, thank you. How do you guys get this joke? There, now that you're awake, we can move on. So, as a Gundam model builder, you will make mistakes. End of story. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to put things upside down. You're going to forget things. Now, I've built prime sanded.
Stuff's upside down.
Yeah, and I painted this part, and I realized that I left a nub there. So in that very first picture, you see that it's painted gold, but I left a nub there because I just didn't see it. So what happens is you have to go back. Now you can leave it alone and hope that no one ever sees it, but my friends are not nice. And they'll point it out to me every chance they get. So you have to go back and sand it down, kind of mask it and touch up that paint. So as a modeler, you're gonna make mistakes.
Let's go back to what I was saying about using the same bottle of paint. This is a great reason why, because you got the same color in the bottle, you just throw the same paint right back on it.
So you will make mistakes. So those decals are upside down. How many of you guys can read Chinese? Thank God, that's right side up. Move on. So Bandai does this to sell you more display bases, and they're horrible because they're plastic and they have nubs on them. And if you built this wonderful kit, sanded it down, painted it, and you put it on the display base, and don't work on the display base, it's horrible. So here's an alternative to doing that, is building your own display bases. Now I bought this display, or these frames from IKEA for like $2. And if you go to your local plastic shop, you can get acrylic sheets from their discard bin for a couple dollars for like a pound of this stuff, and it'll last you forever. but you also need the tools to kind of cut things up and some display stands.
And doing some dumpster diving?
Yes. So this is basically how I built one of those things. I took an acrylic sheet, cut it up, IKEA frame, and I bought these metal standoffs. If you guys know someone that owns a sign shop, these are those little metal stands that are between signs. If you go outside, some of the hallways have these little signs, and they have these metal standoffs. Just unscrew them. Take them home. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So again, picture frame on the bottom of it. I put a piece of mirrored acrylic. So I could, if you display your kit, and you go on from this, here's another display. I use a different color for acrylic on the bottom of it. So it's pretty open to what you want to display or how you want to build this. So from that, you can look at the underside of the kit. I mean, these model kits have a lot of detail on the feet, and if they're just standing on the table, no one ever sees it. How many of you guys paint and detail up the bottom of the feet? Why? No one's ever going to see it. Now, if you put it on the display,
God knows it's there.
if you put it on a display piece like this, with a mirror underneath, you can look up it, and it's kind of cool. You show off to your friends, look, I did that, right? Or you could stick a rod in it and have it flying, or you can have it just standing on top. And it's a pretty nice display base versus having one of those crappy plastic Bandai things. Shameless plug. We also sell these shirts. We've been asked by a couple people, like, hey, where'd you get your shirts? And these go to fund our SCGMC. So if you guys are interested, you come talk to us and we'll figure out how you guys can pick up one of our
That's
shirts.
a beautiful shirt. Who designed that shirt?
Yeah, I mean, this shirt and the camper shirt, our friend back there is a graphics designer and he designed it. He's awesome.
Yay.
Yay, Brandon. He's also shy. Again, Shakes dig Gundam shirts. All right, these layers have a purpose. Panel line wash. Oh wait, whoops. Sorry. I'm gonna skip over panel line wash because Dan talked about it earlier. How'd that work out? We're gonna go into some technology. How many of you guys have ever played with a 3D printer before? Yes! You guys are building cosplay with it. She's raising her hand. You have a 3D, she has a 3D printer? Oh. Can I be adopted? So, 3D printer, new technology, it prints ABS, and you can use this to create stuff for your gun club. So, first of all, you want to draw a design. So I built this sniper rifle for the latest GM Sniper 2, because I didn't really like how the sniper rifle looked. So I'm ex-military, so I like something that looks a little bit more like, I mean, granted it's archaic, it's a sniper rifle for a giant robot. That in itself doesn't really make sense. It's got a scope on it. That's just mind-boggling. So I designed a new front barrel and a new stock for it, completely ripping off Fallout Las Vegas, or New Vegas, if you guys ever played that game. So I have a printer at home. Once I have it designed out, printed it out. And what? Some guy was mumbling back there. He's talking to his dog girlfriend. It's weird. Everyone looks back there. So this is a quick test fit of what that rifle is going to eventually look like. So this cutting. My poor dog. In this picture, he was like 5. In that picture, I think he's like 13. So he can't run away from me as fast anymore. Sucks to be him. So here's what the original GM rifle looked like, and here's what my take on it looked like. So you can see bits and pieces of the original rifle are there, but I've modified it because I could.
Because why not?
Yes, because why not? Don't put us freedom, right? Yes. So, here's another 3D printed wrist. Now, what 3D printing is good for is if you're doing like a lot of tedious work. So if I lay down a piece of plastic, I could build this wrist using plastic strips, but it's going to look like a British guy's teeth. No offense to British guys. Or I can use a 3D printer and make them perfect. How to win contests? Have your corgi. Again, he can't run very fast. I have 3 corgis at home. I'm training them to do stuff for me. They're like my sweatshop. Oh, yeah. All right. So I guess I'm flying solo like I used to do back in the day. All my friends have abandoned me. Oh, this is a, yeah, go ahead, question.
Layer height or definition you use to the 3D printer?
So he asked what's the layer height and definition. So you're talking, I'm printing at 0.5 mm. So the 3D printer I'm using is basically a computer controlled hot glue gun. It sits there and just and builds upwards. Angel's not gonna be back. So we'll do this for him. I'll do this for him. So one of our friends, Angel, he bought a die cutting machine. So he was gonna use it to cut styrene. How many guys have ever seen a die cutting machine? Some guys that do scrapbooking and whatnot. So Angel's thought about it. His mom does a lot of scrapbooking, and he looked at it and like, you know what? I bet this could cut plastic. So what he did was he bought styrene, used some styrene glue, and then he could and a deep cutting blade. He found some designs online, and what you do is you cut out sheets of this stuff and you put it together. So you can create a design on the curio or on this die cutting machine, and cut the plastics out, and then build something from that. So this is an example of what he built. He built Scratch built a hand with it, and all he's doing is cutting out the base parts and gluing it together. Now another.
He builds 2 more. He has enough for all 5 of that guy's got hands.
Another use for this thing is custom masking. So I think this is a video. No, you just skip over the video. Well, there's a play button. There we go. So this will be a quick video that what it does is, you're not seeing anything because it's doing this cutting. He's going to lift up the screen, and he has a piece of masking tape on there, and that die is cutting through the masking tape to create custom masks. So if I want a digital camel pattern, or if I want something slick, I want like a Nike logo or something like that, or even whatever logo you guys want, you can do this on your die cutting machine, and once this is done, how long is it taking? Oh, there we go. It's done.
Faster than a 3D
You'll
printer.
never have to try again.
And you can get masks that